the name of the presentation, oh, can I move here? Is that, okay, is Tools for Assisting Students with Alcohol and Other Drug Misuse. Our objectives of this presentation are really to increase your awareness of the primary substances that are being used at both the Kane Union campus and Kane Ocean, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We want you to have a greater understanding as faculty and staff of signs and symptoms of substance use that you might see in your classroom, that you might see if you have a student working with you, and what are the resources available to you to get assistance. We have had staff and faculty make reports this semester. Nicole and I will talk more about that. And our job is really to help the students, to retain the students, to get them the services they need so that they can inevitably graduate. So I really want to cover first our prevention efforts, because I think it's really important to talk about prevention. Just so you know, we do have a lot of prevention efforts going on. Under our prevention, we follow the college AIM model. It's put out by the National Institute of Alcohol and Alcohol Abuse. Basically, it's this matrix that talks about prevention, best strategies, both environmentally, so on a school level, and individually. So really, that is kind of our backdrop for using that. They have not come out with a matrix on marijuana, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more. So under our web-based tools, we have the Campus Clarity Think About It program. This is given to all our GE 1000 students. They get it prior to coming to campus, so it is sent to them via email in August. It is a web-based tool that covers alcohol information, a harm reduction model. It also incorporates under our Title IX consent, stalking, harassment, domestic violence, interpersonal violence. So it covers all of that. Within that, it's a 2.5-hour program. It gives students resources of where they can go if they find they've been a victim, if they know somebody and they want to get help. So it really is a very nice program. That is done through Alcohol and Other Drug Services Office in collaboration with the Center for Leadership and Service. Scott Snowden really helps, and General Education. Gwen Bellotti helps with that. The students must do that in addition to attending a wellness workshop that Nicole and I do, which covers community standards, community values, rights and responsibilities of students, and it also covers alcohol. And Nicole and Scott worked on a really nice video that covers alcohol and sexual consent, and really talks about what is that, so students are very clear on that. So that is part of the Campus Clarity program. We also have eChug and eToke. These are online tools any student can go to. It's an online self-assessment. It covers alcohol, which is the eChug. eToke is the marijuana. They put in their own use, and it gives them feedback to their use. It's actually put out by San Diego State University. We do not get the results. All we got is that they completed it. So students are able to do this, and it is a nice tool to indicate to them, hey, do you need to talk to someone a little bit further about your use? You know, on the alcohol one, it will compare how much they're drinking to how many burgers they ate, which is very interesting. Some of them take down a lot of burgers. So our trainings, we do a bystander intervention training that is really under Nicole and her peers, and Dr. Christine Sparks with Health Services helps with that. And it really is just about, you know, kind of how do you, you know, intervene in situations where you might not normally. It helps you understand what kind of bystander you are and how to intervene best. And then we do staff and student training. And I do want to say we do cover our special populations that we know tend to be more at risk for using substances or other things. That covers our athletes, our Greek organizations, our resident students. We do work with EEO, EOF, our mental health students. So it really does encompass a lot of kind of our at-risk populations. Under our peer educators, our peer program is 100% under Nicole, and she does an excellent job. They have an Instagram page. I mean, they have everything. Facebook too. And our peers do tabling, they do programming, they have their own page where you could see what programs they do, so it's really an excellent thing. Lastly, I want to get up to, we have screening instruments within health services and the counseling center. Health services in the fall of 2017, they implemented the Audit C, which is a 3 questionnaire on alcohol. Kind of looks at where you fall in an alcohol category. Is it just kind of use? Is it a little bit abuse? Is it more high risk? It is given to every student who comes into health services. After that, they really said, you know what, we need to kick it up a little bit. So this year, they implemented the Audit C+2. It's a 3-part questionnaire with alcohol. It does include marijuana, and it does include other drugs. So we've been looking at those results, and it's very nice because it actually really follows and parallels what's going on in the medical field. Maybe if some of you can recall, if you go to your doctor's office, the questions are, do you smoke, how often, how much? Do you use, maybe it does say illicit substances, maybe it doesn't. So it's really a way of gauging, is that a factor in health? At the counseling center, we implemented the QDIT-R. We're already doing the audit, which is put out by the World Health Organization. It asks 9 questions in terms of alcohol. The QDIT-R specifically deals with marijuana, and we implemented that in the fall of 2017 because we really wanted to get an idea of who is coming into the counseling center and what is the presence of alcohol and marijuana, and is that present in their mental health? Is that contributing? Is that the main factor? So we really kind of wanted to look at that. Okay, so I'm going to move on. So we do have 2 PSAs. I just want to cover this. I won't go into them, but we do have the Step Up program, which is a bystander intervention. You could Google it. It's excellent. And we also have the It's On Us campaign. Okay, so alcohol. So the 2 primary substances that nationally and at Kane Union Campus are alcohol and marijuana. Those are our 2 primary substances our students are using. I kind of wanted to cover trends because I'm not going to go into everything, but what you need to be aware of. So binge drinking has been a trend for a long time. Binge drinking is defined 5 drinks for a male, 4 drinks for a female in a 2-hour period. What the research is saying, and I sit on the New Jersey Higher Education Consortium, which is a group of all the state schools, and we're coming and we're like, 4 and 5 drinks? We're way beyond that. University of Michigan started doing research, and what they're finding is they're calling it high-intensity drinking, and that's actually what we're seeing. High-intensity drinking is 10 drinks, 15 drinks plus. And they're taking it down in various forms, over a variety of hours, over a short amount of hours, but that's kind of what we're seeing is going on both on and off campus. While we still do have the binge drinking, the 5 and 4 drinks, we're seeing more of this high intensity drinking, which has more negative consequences as a result of taking in that much alcohol that quickly, and them really not knowing how their body even metabolizes alcohol. Students are drinking to get drunk. When I assess them, they are saying they can't remember. I'm like, well, how much did you drink? I don't know. I think I had 4 or 5 cups. I'm like, well, was the goal to get drunk? Oh yeah, drunk. They're choosing hard liquor over beer. We actually saw that in the millennials. There's a lot of research on that. Millennials are one of the high consumers of wine. They are choosing to do hard liquor over beer because it's less calories. And believe me, we've had some room inspections, and they're choosing some very high-end alcohol. Gone are the days of getting the Smirnoff. Like, it's Grey Goose, and it's then some. They're pre-gaming with themed prizes, so actually it's so incentivized. Come on, win, win, win. So we're seeing that. They're day drinking. They call it Dage for day rage, and Darty for day party. And it starts, back in the day, it's, hey, you can drink as long as it's double digits. They're starting double digits or not double digits. It could be starting at 9 in the morning. It could go to 3 in the afternoon, or it starts at 12, goes to 5, and they are pretty much annihilated. I I put in drunkorexia. It's kind of a colloquialism. There's no medical term for it, but what we're seeing is, and this isn't going with men and women, what they're doing is they are restricting calories. So either they have an underlying eating disorder, or they're restricting calories because the goal is to get drunk quick. So it kind of goes both ways, and you have to kind of suss that out. But what we're seeing is they will not intake food all day or very small amounts, and they're basically drinking on an empty stomach, which is like mainlining alcohol into your system. And they are drunk quick, and they are drunk fast, and we are seeing a lot of blackouts when this is occurring. And again, I just want to clarify that it is both male and female. And the last one, I just want to say this because I think this is where it kind of ties into the faculty and staff, is they are bringing alcohol concealed in water bottles, and I actually have a picture up so you could see, travel mugs, and the primary substance they're putting in is vodka. When I do assess students, I will ask, do you go to class under the influence, alcohol, drugs, marijuana, whatever the case may be? Do you bring it? Some say, yeah, I do bring it. So I do want you to be aware of this, and there actually is an article, you can Google it, How to Drink in Class 101, and it's specific for college students, and the best way to kind of conceal it so, the professor is not aware. So we want you to be aware that while it might be happening few and far between, it is taking place. So I just put some pictures up. The red Solo cup, that is their friend. All day and all night. They are still drinking the jungle juice. The thing about this with the jungle juice is it is pretty much green alcohol. It is pretty much Everclear. There's many states it's not legal. It is here. And they are putting bottles and bottles of Everclear in it. Mostly the drinks are made for the females. And Everclear is odorless, colorless, tasteless. So you put that in, throw maybe a bottle of vodka in, and it's inexpensive too, I'd like to add that. Throw a bottle of vodka in, and they have 2 or 3 cups and don't remember the night. Everclear is ranked number 2 highest alcohol content in the world. It's pretty much 96% grain alcohol. And in fact, the number 1 alcohol, there's a label, it's a Polish vodka, spirituous, and on the label it actually says, do not do a shot, you can burn out your esophagus. So they're drinking Everclear, and Nicole and I see it, and it's very dangerous, and honestly, when I run my groups, and especially I will say to the women in the group, don't do it, God bless you. Go to the keg, at least it's beer. If you go to the jungle juice, you're really not sure what's in it, especially if you were not there to see it made. I do want to show you this. This is the new tool. So gone are the days of the one funnel. We have the octopus. So it's a multi-funnel. The thing about this is not only are they just putting beer in the top, they're also putting hard liquor. Here is just a picture of kind of the water bottle. They are still doing the gummies and stuff soaked in alcohol, and a lot are soaking it in the grain alcohol. And during the day parties, they will hollow the watermelon out, and actually the one thing they will put in there is the grain alcohol. Okay. So the academic impact, obviously intoxication does have a negative impact for 48 hours, which is why within our athletic organizations, we have the 48-hour rule. Because, I always say to the students, alcohol is going to give you, hopefully if you remember it, 3 to 5 hours of maybe a good time. The payback is 24 to 48. Because depending on how intoxicated they are, that's how hungover they will be, because it will take that long to get the alcohol out of their system. 1 in 4 suffer academic consequences. What we're seeing is misclassed, unexplained absences, tardiness, so they will come late to class, they might look disheveled, they might not even make it. We actually see an inverse relationship with high-risk drinking and GPA. They have lower grades on exams, papers, and it is associated with delayed graduation or failure to graduate. Which is why we really encourage you, if you're seeing kind of some signs, and we'll go into a little bit more, please report it. I mean, we're just asking you to report what you observe. That's what we're asking you to report. We don't want you to make an assumption. We don't want you to say, I think it's this. This is what I'm observing. Joe comes to class. He looked pretty good throughout the semester. Midway through, I'm noticing he's disheveled. He's not really concentrating. It's what you are observing is what we want to hear, and then we will take it from there. And I do want to say 20% of college students meet criteria for a substance use disorder and alcohol use disorder. So it is a high percentage, so we really want to kind of catch those students. So signs, you might smell odor on the breath. If they are intoxicated, they might be unsteady, glazed appearance, bloodshot eyes, they'll have difficulty focusing. If you see mood or behavior changes, and this does come through in a lot of our QBIP reports, it can be related to substance. They could be inappropriate loud talk, maybe passive behavior. They're usually engaging the class and raising their hand, and the next thing you know, midway through, they'd never say anything. They just kind of come in and sit there and almost look like they could fall asleep. They could be combative, argumentative. You might see them sleeping in class or kind of like that lounging. There could be fluctuations in weight. Decline in appearance, we kind of talked about that. Bruises, accidents, and it's interesting because our health services after the weekend will really take a look at that. Students who are intoxicated, they fall. So we really look at, are bruising and accidents related to intoxication? Is it related to something else? So if you see a lot of that, that's another behavior. If you do Monday or Friday classes, or you are a staff member and they are supposed to report to work Monday, Friday, and they're absent a lot during those times, that's definitely a clue in that something might be going on, especially substance related. Decreased interest in class, decreased interest in extracurricular activities, if they happen to be in a Greek organization and engaging less, or an athlete, stuff like that, or they're in a club that you run, and you're noticing they were really, really very active, and now they almost seem like they don't want to be here. That could be something else. And again, if you're noticing a drastic change in grades, that's another clue that something's going on. It doesn't necessarily have to be substance. It could be mental health. It could be both. But again, that is something you are able to observe. Joe was doing great, and all of a sudden, he's going from A's to F's. That's pretty significant. Again, something to report in on. Okay, so any questions on the alcohol before I move to the marijuana? Okay, so our second substance we see is marijuana, and I will cover that thoroughly. This is the most widely used illicit drug amongst college students, and there is heavy use going on, and that's nationally. 1 in every 22 college students use daily or near daily. 1 in 22, which is pretty high. In 2016, use was the highest seen in 3 decades. And I say this is not the dirt weed you'd find in the 70s, 80s, or 90s, where there's a lot of stems and there's a lot of seeds. We're not seeing that anymore. This is high intense marijuana. Sorry to use the terms, I'm in the field, so I'm like, it's good bud. I feel like I'm sitting with a student, but it is genetically modified. This is high intensity, high grade marijuana. So in 1995, 4%, 2014, 12%, 2017, California was coming in at 34%, and heavy hitter, which is kind of the wax and all that, is coming in at 90% THC, 90%. They're smoking, and it is high grade. They also are buying medical grade too, and I'll kind of talk about that. So the trends is vaping. I'll show a vape pen, twaxing. Yes?
That's of what? 1% of what?
4%, I'm sorry, THC. So the marijuana in 1995, the THC, which is the psychoactive ingredient that's going to get you high, was coming in at 4%. In 2017, the THC, and they were doing it out in California because in the states where it's recreational legal, you know, they have competitions. It was coming in at 34%. 34% THC. Their intake, when they're smoking it, 34% is THC. So it's pretty high. I mean, 34 compared to 4. The high is just very different. Thank you for your question. So they're vaping, they're twaxing, they're dabbing. All those are THC concentrates. So, which means it is a higher concentrate than the herb, the dry form, okay? So a concentrate is, you could either see it looks wax-like, it looks like glass. It's the way it's all extracted, concentrated, and there's a higher content in it. We get asked this a lot. Kean University follows federal guidelines. We receive the Drug-Free Schools and Communities Act. What does that mean? Medical marijuana is legal in New Jersey. We have students who have disabilities who might need to use medical marijuana. They cannot use it on any Kean-owned or leased property because we fall under federal guidelines. That actually goes for states where it is legal. Colorado, you cannot use it where the school is receiving federal funds. Same with California. As of right now, marijuana is a Schedule I drug under the federal government. It is being looked at to be a Schedule II, but it is not. It is a Schedule I drug, which means it has no medical value whatsoever. Despite what you want to argue with it, that's what it is right now. So with that said, we cannot have students who do have medical marijuana, who do present you with a medical marijuana card. They cannot smoke it or use it on this property. And they should not have it on them because they do run the risk of being arrested. Now, our cops are wonderful, but we do, and our managing assistant director from ODS is here, and that is something that is conveyed. Right, Donna? Yeah. So I just want to be very clear with that. So if a student's like, well, no, professor, I have a card, doesn't matter. You cannot be coming to class high. You cannot be smoking it on your break. We'll talk about breaks. Because as of right now, we receive federal funds, and here's the law. Okay? Here's a blunt. Just wanted to show everyone. I have some pictures. So what they'll do is they will hollow it out, stuff that with marijuana, and smoke it. Students typically buy, gone are the days where you're buying, although I just had a student say, no, you could still get a $10 bag, Kim, a dime bag. Our students are buying by the ounce. Why? Because you buy in bulk, kind of like Costco, you get a better deal. That's why. So you buy in bulk and you get a better deal. Typically our students are buying, and most students are buying 1/8 of an ounce. That equates to 3.5 grams. If you think about it, one blunt typically has 1 gram in it, okay? Here is a bong and a bowl, smiles. I wanna show you this because this is a USB port, and this is kind of what they're vaping out of. I did wanna show you this because this is the big thing. Students will say, I have them come in, but the language is, oh, I smoked out of the G pen. This is what it looks like. It's a G pen. In fact, you can Google Snoop Dogg's G pen. He has a very interesting video on YouTube. I was told don't put it up, so I didn't. But just so you could see what they're using out of. And I just wanted to show you this because during the day they could charge it through their iPhone. So, yeah. Yes, Max. That's an actual USB drive, an actual one that you would use. It looks like one. You wouldn't use it. Oh, I'm sorry. It looks like one. You wouldn't use it. But if you're in class as a faculty member, you might be like, oh, they have a USB. And meanwhile, they're going out on break using it. So I just wanted to show you that. But yes, sorry for not clarifying. But the G pen, students walk around and use it, and you wouldn't think anything of it. I just wanted to show you what it looks like. And again, if you hear them saying, hey, you want some of the G, that's typically how they'll term it. Okay, so marijuana. They're high in class. They will have difficulty acquiring, retaining new information, difficulty speaking, listening. They may interrupt. Their memory is definitely going to be impaired. We do have students who do go to class high, and they will tell me. There's really, really great research coming out of the University of Maryland on marijuana use and retention, and I'm going to cover some of that. And if you need the reference, I do have that. It's great work. It's her last name is Area, and they're really doing some really good research on this. So what they found is that use is correlated to poor academic outcomes. Use equates to skipping class, and it equates to a lower GPA. Students who smoke carry about a B average or less. Casual users, which they're defining as about 3 to 12 times a month, experience gaps in enrollment. And frequent users, which is 17 times per month, are twice as likely to drop out of classes. And it's interesting, I just had a student who I'm seeing who had a violation and really took the violation as, wow, that was a big wake-up call, and said that the person was hanging out with, who was also a student, did not return due to their use. So we know there's gaps in enrollment, and that's a national thing that's taking place, not just at Kane. 9% of those who use do become dependent. There is in the DSM, which is the diagnostic manual used for diagnosing, there is cannabis use disorder, and it goes mild, moderate, severe. There is cannabis induced anxiety. So we could, get into that. And there's cannabis withdrawal. I just want to say number one symptom of withdrawal, insomnia. Students start not being able to sleep, they go back to smoking. So we kind of talk about, hey, here's a withdrawal symptom, give it a couple weeks. Increases to 17% if they started using in their teens. My first question I ask students is, when is the first time you ever smoked marijuana? And we start there. Especially if it's in their teens, middle school, we start, I really start engaging them with kind of what is their use history. Signs of use: rapid, loud talking, bursts of laughter. This is in the early stage. I do want to cover, once they smoke, the first 2 to 3 hours is the time they're going to be high, which is, a big problem out in Colorado because they're driving and their DUI rates have gone up out there. The difference I just want to share is we do have students who use edibles. They're usually not very familiar with the edibles. Edibles take way longer to get into that system. So you eat it, whatever you're eating, gummy, brownie, cookie, could take about an hour. So what happens is they take a piece you're supposed to take, and they're like, oh, I'm not feeling anything. The brownie tasted really good. I'm going to grab a little more. And the next thing we know, they've eaten too much, and they could have a psychotic-like reaction. So the edibles, the ones actually that are out in Colorado and everything, they're labeled, and it will say, if you are a frequent user, take this much. If you are not a frequent user, take this much. It's very directive. So here, it's just like, here's a cookie. You can't eat the whole cookie. So we really kind of talk about that too. And the edibles, we're not seeing students come in a high under the edibles. It's a different high. The edibles have really like a body high, so your hand you just might even feel like you can't get out of the bed. It's a different high than smoking or vaping. Okay, so typically you'll see more of the smoking or vaping. They might seem sleepy or dazed as the class goes on, and it depends on how long the class is. If it's a lab, as the high is wearing off, they might have different appearances than if it's a 1 hour class and they just smoked. They might appear different. They could have bloodshot eyes, but I want to say not every user is going to have bloodshot eyes. So don't use that as, Well, they don't have bloodshot eyes. They're not, a user. They actually carry a marijuana pouch. And in the pouch is Visine. They have everything in there. Actually, I had a student show me their pouch. And it's highly equipped with everything. So, you might not see that bloodshot eye because of that. There could be a curious odor. It could be a pungent smell, especially more if they smoked the herb. If they vaped, if they vaped, you're probably not going to smell it. There could be a brown residue on their fingers. That could be from rolling. That could be from smoking, so you might actually see that. And there could be a sense of paranoia or panic, especially if they smoked, they're coming down, or it wasn't a good high, or they smoked too much. You could see that kind of sense of panic, and we've seen that in students, and that's common. That could happen. Oh, any question before I move on to the opiates? Any questions on marijuana or anything? Yeah.
What is the people in your profession about legalizing marijuana and what effect that's? Is that going to encourage?
It's a very interesting question. I knew someone would ask that. Thank you for. Well, it's very interesting. So let's take California, for example. What's happening is California is now saying, okay, the market, now you have to label it what the pesticides are. So there's now all these packaging, and what we're seeing is the black market's thriving. They're not pulling in as much because of the regulations, what is required with getting attorneys, what's required with packaging. Now you have to have security in these areas because with the banking and the money, black market is thriving in California. So, is there a thing of maybe don't legalize, decriminalize? So there's other things. With our students, I don't get into that debate because to me, it's more like, is your use impacting you academically? And if so, what do we need to do? Because do you want to graduate? Yes, we need to get you there. How are we going to do that? And am I enough? Do you need more? I don't get into that debate. And my office takes a very harm reduction approach around alcohol and marijuana. Other drugs, not so much. Heroin's a hard harm reduction approach. But it really is more about, we don't tell the students, we kind of give them the information so that they can make the best decision for themselves. So I appreciate that question. In states where it is legal, they're seeing black markets skyrocket. And in fact, there was a very interesting article about that with this guy was saying, hey, you know what? Let me do this legally. I've been growing. I know what I'm doing. He said it wasn't even worth the money. He's making more on the black market because of the regulations, especially around the pesticide stuff. And in fact, they were looking at years ago students who were people who were presenting to neurological centers, and they were looking at Parkinson. And one of the questions being asked was, did you smoke in the 70s? And they were looking at that because of the crops that were sprayed and the pesticides it was sprayed with. Because with marijuana, when you go buy it from your dealer, first of all, you don't know what's in it. And there's about 400 other chemicals in it other than THC, CBD, and they're all cancer-causing agents. So I don't know if that answered your question. I tried. I try not to take a big political position. I just want to get our students to graduate. Yes?
I'm not clear on one point.
Yeah.
You said, if I understood you correctly a few minutes ago, your concern is students' ability to return to class in a full manner to participate in as a proper student and stay in school. It seems to me, maybe that's not in your domain. It seems to me, ought you not be also dealing, how are they dealing with life? In the sense that, forget about whether they're going to graduate. Get them into classes only like a bandit.
Yeah, I mean, so,
It seems the issue is much deeper.
sure. So absolutely, and retention is part of that. But what I was going to say is we look at them holistically. I mean, so if there's students that I could see because their use is enough to be seen at my level, I'll see them. If there's students who need more, which there is, we send them out to get that, because without that, they're not going to be successful in their life and therefore academically. So we do look at the whole picture. It's not just, oh, you need to be in school. It's you need to be functioning. And school is part of that functioning, in addition to other areas. Any student who sees me, I actually, because we receive federal funds, my program falls under federal confidentiality laws. So short of a court order, other than them signing a release, my records are locked down, sealed. They absolutely know it. Every student who sees me signs a release form, signs a confidentiality form that gives them all the federal regulations. Their signature says, I've received a copy and I'm aware. So it is highly confidential. No one can access my records. My records are even separate from our mental health records. And if I don't have a certain court order, I've received court orders. If it doesn't have a certain part, they're not going. Yes. So it's in their possession. Do you want to cover that one, Nicole? From a judicial perspective? Do you want to touch on? I mean, I could too.
Yeah. So it depends upon the situation. Every situation is case by case. Definitely, if we have a situation where we believe a student is dealing narcotics, the minimum sanction for that is suspension from school, and it could arise to expulsion. But that has to go through a student conduct process. Minimally, if a student comes to class and they're under the influence, the first part is to send them to the counseling center and go through a program we call Alternatives, which is, kind of education. And if the situation continues and the behavior is disruptive in class, yes, we will remove a student from class. There might be a suspension period. But our main concern is really getting them that education first. Criminally and administratively are two separate processes. I can't speak to criminal sanctions. Definitely, if they are arrested, they have to go to court and follow through with whatever the court says. For certain types of situations, especially when it is over a certain amount, I believe it's if you are in possession of over 50 grams of marijuana, that constitutes a federal crime, and then you have to go through, court and everything like that. Not necessarily. It really depends on the level. We have to assess what the level of usage is. If it's something that, and when we can't mandate students to go and continue with counseling, as Kim said, like if their usage rises to a level that we can't treat or, doesn't qualify to go through the educational program, then we may view their presence here as a liability because we wouldn't want them to harm themselves or others. So yes, then there possibly would be a suspension for usage. It really depends upon how serious it is. Yes.
Yes, we are going to cover that. Yep. Yes. This is still my last part, then we'll get to the reporting. Yes, sorry. Let me get to opiates. So Percocet, anything like that, heroin. We are seeing this more, and this is within the state. It's being seen more at the county college level. We have not seen it so much at the Kane Union campus, but we are seeing it in areas where the county college is in areas where there is heavy opiate use. Okay, so I do want to cover some things about this. In 2016, ACHA, which is the American College Health Association, they actually came out with new guidelines for prescribing opiates in college health. Our health practitioners, nurse practitioners, do not prescribe opiates. So that doesn't, no students get any opiates if they go to health services, but there is new regulations for that. In 2017, it was declared a public health crisis in New Jersey. It was declared a national emergency in 2017. In New Jersey, they changed the prescribing laws in 2017 where you can only get 5 days worth. So you go to urgent care, you go to the hospital, you go to your primary care doctor, you're only able to get 5 days worth of opiates. And if you need to refill that, you are going to have to go back to the doctor for that. Gone are the days where you're getting 90, 120 pills in a pop. There's stricter guidelines for veterinary prescriptions. What they were finding is that those struggling with substance use disorder, particularly opiates, were actually taking or going and getting tramadol, which is an opiate, from the vets. Vets often prescribe tramadol for pain for animals, Valium, Xanax, and they were going and getting those prescriptions. So they really kind of came out with new guidelines. And in 2018, Walmart and Sam's Club also came out with a policy to only prescribe 7 days worth. New Jersey was 5, so it will go to 5 in New Jersey. I just want to say, too, the CDC just came out, I think it was a week or two ago, and declared fentanyl the most dangerous drug, and we'll kind of cover that. Opiates. So OxyContin, sustained release, Percocet, Vicodin, dilaudid, fentanyl, we'll cover that. A lot of these are pill form, however, users can crush them. Usually if you crush a pill, it will bypass the delayed release. Sometimes what they'll do is they will crush a pill, put it in toilet paper, swallow it. It's called parachuting. So they'll do various means to ingest it differently. Non-prescription, obviously, is heroin, and I did put up carfentanil. That is a tranquilizer used for game animals, more buffalo and everything, but that was being found in some of the overdoses. It is so powerful. The Buffalo Field Agency, I think it's in Montana, came out with a thing on even eating buffalo that have been shot up with carfentanil, that you shouldn't even consume it. So I just want to show some pictures. So here's heroin fentanyl. Overdose in New Jersey has not gone down. In fact, it's gone up. What we're seeing is fentanyl is in most of the overdoses. Users don't have a clue they're buying fentanyl. They go to get heroin. Fentanyl is being put in it because it is very cheap. Fentanyl is man-made, synthetic. A lot of it's coming out of Mexico and China. And like I said, users don't have a clue. So I want to show you, just so you could see, fentanyl is very potent. It's about 20, 30 to 50 times that of heroin. And carfentanil, they gave that for a little thing, but that little amount will kill you. Fentanyl does come in patches. It's really used for cancer patients, patients with HIV, AIDS. Users will actually try and wring out the patch and use that too. Yes?
So is fentanyl what makes the person high?
The problem is they're not really getting high. So the patients who are prescribed it, it's really for intense pain management. The users who get it unknowingly are dying because it's so potent, and the street level is obviously not monitored, and it's incredibly potent. Actually, it's so potent that first responders, if you suspect an overdose and you call 911, they actually will say to you, do you think there is drugs? Do you think there is heroin? We need to know because we need to come in certain gear. That's what's going on in the state, because they don't have a clue what's in any of this stuff.
When I was in Florida, I was in Florida this past vacation, and they're actually developing test strips. So if you buy heroin on the street, you can use a test strip to see if it has fentanyl in it. because it's become such an epidemic. So they're actually trying to help addicts not overdose, not die by providing these test strips to them.
And I want to say this, someone with a substance use disorder, and let's even go with heroin addiction, we hear it that someone overdosed, was given Narcan, and came back to life, and we're like, oh my gosh, whoa, they're lucky. Addicts hear it, and they're like, where'd they get that stuff? That is what I want, because that's going to take me to the next level. And that's kind of that addiction piece. Signs of use. After dose, they could be euphoric, and then you will see definite sedation. They also often call it the nodding out. They'll kind of nod out and come to. It's interesting when they're nodding out, they hear everything though, but they'll nod out and come to. They'll be very confused. Their pupils will be so constricted. It's like pinpoint. Again, nodding off. They can be itchy. Sometimes it makes them itchy. They can have physical agitation. They'll definitely show up late. They might be withdrawing from class. But I also want to say this. Heroin addicts also function. So they can be in your class. They might take a little bump to make it through enough so they're not going into withdrawal and be in your class. So, it's not like the heroin addicts we think of as years ago as they're sitting on the street. No, they're in our classes. They're at the job. They're functioning. But they know enough to take so they don't go into withdrawal. Because heroin, if you do not use it, or any opiate-based thing, you will go into withdrawal in hours after the last use. Yes? Typically not, hallucination is not typically a part of it, but it depends on what else they've taken. So a lot of times they want the double high, so they'll take heroin and Xanax, or they'll speedball and do cocaine and heroin. And I also want to say this, a lot of cocaine overdoses, they're finding fentanyl in. And a cocaine user never thinks they're getting fentanyl in it. In fact, I was running a thing and I was telling students, you know what, if you're using that, there could be fentanyl in it. They're like, no, that's for people who use heroin. I'm like, no. When you don't know what you're buying, you really don't know what's in it, especially what's cut into it. So it really depends on what other substances they're using. Yep. And there can be hygiene changes, weight loss. Not all heroin addicts are thin. Everyone's like, oh, they look so thin. No, they might not. They do eat too. But they could also have, it used to be meth mouth, was with methamphetamine. What they're seeing, especially with heroin, what's cut into it, is they could have that too. So there could be a lot of dental issues. And if you have someone who reports frequent flu-like symptoms, oh, my stomach hurts, I gotta go to the bathroom, I'm just not feeling well again, that could be heroin withdrawal. Heroin withdrawal looks like the flu. So if you have a student who's reporting a lot of that consistently, again, it's just something to kind of clue into. So just quickly, AOD is a risk factor. 1,800, around 1,800 students die of unintentional injuries. They fall, there's car accidents, those various things. About 700,000 students are assaulted by a classmate who were drinking, and that could be a physical assault. We do see that. 90,000 students are victims of alcohol-related sexual assault and rape. There is financial impact. We also tell our students, especially with marijuana, if you are caught, and depending on what that sanction, that legal sanction is, let me be clear, it's a legal thing, you can lose financial aid. And they don't really think about that, but that can be very impactful. Alcohol and drug abuse are second as the most frequent risk factor for suicide. Suicide is second highest cause of death among college students. It's present in 30 to 40% of suicide attempts, and those with substance use disorder are at greater risk, particularly if you're an IV user. Okay, I'm just going to pass this to Nicole because this will help you know where to report.
So I am also, my primary role here is the Director of Community Standards and Student Conduct. And in that role, I am responsible for reviewing cases where it specifically speaks to conduct, which is what you mentioned. What we really want to impress upon all of our faculty and staff and other students is that we are responsible for each other, and we really want to make sure that students are connected to resources here for their success. And students will hear us talk a lot about alcohol, they'll hear us talk a lot about drugs and sexual assault. It's just that we know that these three things definitely can have an impact on your ability to be here. So in an effort to retain you and keep you here, we want to make sure that you're being educated about it. That's why we have this intense program, the Campus Clarity, for all of our incoming students. So we are trying our best to be proactive. And in those cases where we have to be reactive, we want to make sure that we have processes in place to address it quickly. So my second role here is I am a member of the Kane University Behavioral Intervention Team. A plug for that, we're doing a presentation Thursday, 9 o'clock, actually here. So please come and see that, because that will connect you with resources as well. But the BIT team is one of those resources here that if you observe behavior in your class or outside of class, in Starbucks, the library, the cafeteria, wherever, we want to make sure that you're connecting with the BIT team to get that information to us. One of the things, again, we always ask is, if you feel comfortable with having those conversations with your students, absolutely do that. I think that is a really good first step. But if you do not feel comfortable having that conversation, please reach out to our BID team and we'll walk you through how that process looks. And one of the things we don't ever want you to think is that these processes are consequential. I mean, well, not consequential, but, well, yeah, consequential. That there are negative consequences sometimes of that behavior. And one of the things, it's really just about the safety of that individual, and it's about the safety of the community. And I'll just speak to one particular case that came through our BID team, and we reviewed it, and it was a student who had come to class and reeked of marijuana. There was just no way of getting around the fact that the smell emitting from his body was marijuana. It was disruptive to the class because everybody in the class, smelled it. And that can be disturbing to other students in the class, even though it was a small class. So the professor reported it to the BIT team, and I felt that it was a little bit above behavioral intervention, that it really was more of a conduct issue. So I brought the student in and had a conversation. Now, he wasn't exhibiting any other signs except the smell, so he wasn't acting up, he wasn't screaming or acting disruptive in that manner. But I had to question, why would you go to class, under the influence? So we made the connection with the counseling center. He was not charged with a violation. But the condition was, I really want you to go over to counseling and get that initial assessment for alternatives. What we found was his use was so high that he actually had to be referred out. And what we cannot do is to say, well, we can't make you go to counseling, but we've identified that you have a very serious issue. So it's kind of up to you whether or not you want to take advantage of that process. Now, if it happens again and we have more disruption, then I think we have a little bit more of a basis to say, well, now we have to kick it up a notch. Maybe you don't get to be here for a period of time until you address that. So that was a really good intervention, I felt, that we made for this student. And hopefully, and he didn't realize, I don't think, that it was really affecting people. So a lot of it, too, is reflective to see, how is your behavior impacting and affecting other students in class and your faculty as well. Yes, you can make a phone call. Qubit does not have a direct line. Maximina Rivera, our Assistant Vice President for Residential Student Services, is the chair. You can actually search in the Kane website, KUBIT, and that'll take you online to the link for the behavioral intervention form. It is an online form. You're just filling it out, and that information comes directly into our email, and then we review it and then assess it as a team. We meet about weekly, every other week on Thursdays, but definitely if it's something that needs immediate attention, we're following up right away. On the student conduct website, there is also an incident report, and you can use it there as well. And because I think behavioral intervention and conduct are intertwined, even though they are separate processes, don't worry about which incident report you fill out. Just get us the information. In most circumstances, there's sometimes just no way of getting around that unless the person reporting, I'm getting some feedback here in my ear, unless the person reporting clearly doesn't want to let, you just say, I would rather not, be the one identified as the person who brought this to our attention. But depending how far we go along with that process, that conversation might get a little difficult. But we do try, we do our best. But if you clearly say you do not want to be identified, we do not do that. It's a very delicate conversation. So if you really feel that you do not want to be identified, I would much rather put it out there and say that I do not want to be identified. Students do the same thing. A roommate. It's kind of hard to get around a roommate reporting something because that might be their only roommate. So they can kind of deduct who that person actually is. One of the things we really want to do, and we're running out of time, I understand the hesitancy and feeling that students are going to retaliate. And the bottom line is it's a different world we're living in. And I know and understand the hesitancy in wanting to report these things, but think about the job that I have to do, right? I can't remain anonymous, but I want everybody to have that same kind of comfort level. I mean, because this is my life, this is what I deal with on a daily basis. I've developed that kind of, comfortability with it, but I want everybody to feel that way. I want everybody, we're all concerned about these students, and we need to let them know that what we are not doing is not to dismiss you from school. We want to keep you. We want to retain you. That's why we have these interactive programs before you get here. That's why we have, Ms. Quinn having those conversations. And although we have a very small percentage of students who we identify as having these issues here, I can't really say it's a big problem, but if you do want to see what our statistics are, and these aren't comparable nationally, these are just our statistics that speak to how many alcohol violations and how many students were arrested for drugs and alcohol, as well as some other campus safety statistics. But we're a community. That's why we teach our students bystander prevention, why we want you to figure out what is your intervention style, right? We have passive intervention. We have active intervention. We definitely want to connect them to Kane University Police. And that's another thing people don't realize. They think every time they call police, it's just going to result in, a takedown with handcuffs and an arrest. And no, they don't always want to do that either. Sometimes that's necessary, but maybe they just want to have that proactive conversation. Police are our first call out when we have emergency situations. They are the ones that are trained for that response. So we have to, all be engaged in getting the information to the right people. I saw a hand, yes.
I'm really curious, the extent to which proactive phase, specifically related to RAs, the way you approach the students in small groups rather than more austere lecturing or big rooms or executive kind of presentation. The extent to which work is being done on alcohol, drugs, on sexual harassment, and so on. In an environment in which there is an opportunity before the students actually settle into a routine where they end up being in our class, the extent to which they comprehend that within their social milieu it's being addressed. I seem to feel we're dealing with it after we've seen the problem. I appreciate what you're saying, that in that smaller environment of their peers, to what extent is that effectively reaching?
Well, we've been doing Campus Clarity for, I would say, the past 3 years. So I would be confident in saying that a majority of our student population has had that education. Each year, we do different follow-up. So at the beginning of the year, I am doing workshops through New Student Orientation. I am also doing it for our transfer population that come in August and in January. When students come in as residents, they are as they're moving in, they're being given information. They also then follow up even that first couple of nights with programming, relative to alcohol prevention. I am doing outreach to individual athletic teams. So when they come in for their season, I am meeting with them to give them that information as well. So I can say with confidence that I would say majority, probably maybe, I would say 85 to 90% of our student population has been educated. Unfortunately, there are those that fall through the cracks. It's a work in progress. I think it's just something that we can't ever give up and say that we've achieved it and it's, everybody here knows about it, because they are so creative, our students, and every day they're coming up with, new things. But we just have to continue continue to be as proactive as we possibly can. I hope that helps. Yes.
I know it was mentioned earlier, EEO and EOF students are a special group of students. Do you provide a workshop to them during their 6-week period when they're on campus?
Well, I do not do an individual program for them, but I am at their orientation. I am also speaking with their parents because we do want to engage their parents as well. So yes, in the summer I am meeting with them. I think they come in about June-ish. So yes, I'm doing that same type of orientation with them. And again, through the New Student Orientation, the way we've changed it. So this past summer, we had a 2-day orientation process for all of our incoming students. And they were mandatory workshops that Kim and I had to do for all of our newcoming students, and EO students are part of that because they are getting oriented to the campus. It's an overnight, so they're being introduced to residential student services, and they're registering as well as the other resources. So they are getting that as well. Absolutely. So actually, Kim started the program. I think we're going on about 9 years maybe with the peer educators. We're always looking to take this program to the next height. Right now, I only have 3 peer educators, but we are on Cougar Link. We have a Cougar Link link. So if you are interested in having the peer educators come to your class, what we have found is that students relate to their peers more. So we've educated other students, they are paraprofessionals, to give this same kind of information. And we find that peers are more receiving of that information from another peer rather than from an adult or an administrator. So the peers do programming on alcohol. They are going out into the residence halls to do programming. They are trained to do the bystander prevention program, which we call Step Up. And they have gone out to different classes, and we've actually done presentations. There was a human rights class we did. We did a health education class for Dr. Bonias. So they are available. We are looking to transition them to health services because we really do see them as health educators, because they are talking about sexual health, they're talking about drugs, they're talking about alcohol, they're talking about healthy relationships, and they are here for the fall and the spring semesters, not over the summer. Okay? Do you want to go through the ATOT?
I'm just going to finish. There's a couple slides that are important. I just want to say also with the EO program, myself and our associate director, Dr. Annan, we also do meet with them. I cover my services, and Dr. Annan covers the counseling center services. Just quickly, I'll just cover my office. Over the past 6 years, I've been here for a long time. Over the past 6 years, of all the students who get sent to my area, we have under a 10% rate of those who I'm sending out. It's very low, the amount of students who get sent out. Most of them are able to be seen in my office, which is very good. And we also have very high completion rates. So those who've had a violation really do come through, go through the program, and we have low recidivism rates. We have a Choices 1 program, a Choices 2. I don't even think 1% of our students go through the Choices 2 program. They're both for alcohol, first offense, second offense. And we have an alternatives program, which is for marijuana. Again, very low recidivism. I also want to cover, I do not assess, I do not evaluate. The term I use is I screen students. It kind of is an evaluation assessment, but we do not urine screen in my office. Without a urine screen, it's self-reporting. A full assessment incorporates diagnostic testing and urine screens. So the terms I use is you are getting a screening. If we need to know more based on what you're telling me, and students are very honest, then we will send them out for a comprehensive screening. We work with their insurance. If they have Medicaid, we work with that. I have facilities that take arcane students. There's never a problem with that. We will make sure they get connected with services. They do not need to do the work. I will do the work. They just have to show up for the appointment. And it is covered under their insurance. And like I said, if they don't have it, we will work with that. I just wanted to cover quickly too, Ocean County has phenomenal stuff going on, especially with the opiate crisis. They do have the Blue Heart program, which is anyone who is struggling can actually go to, there's various days in the municipalities where they can actually go to the police department and kind of in a way ask for help and even hand in their opiates, whether it's heroin and whatever it is. They're not getting locked up, they're getting connected with services. Under Lifeline Recovery Support, also out of Toms River, they connect them with treatment and follow them. The new thing they're going to be doing, it's called the Next Step, which is working with those who are incarcerated in Ocean County. Lifeline is working with them so that when they come out, they're connected with services. Because what we find is those who are incarcerated, especially if they've had an opiate addiction, once they go on the street, they're more susceptible to an overdose because they haven't been using. I just want to talk quickly. The antidote used is Narcan. Some of you might be trained in it. Our first responders are KUPD. All officers have 2 doses of the Narcan on them. We have not had a dispense on campus, but our KUPD has dispensed off campus to non-cane students. Okay, so we have not had to use that. I am going to say this because people have asked, oh, I'm trained in Narcan. That's your choice what you do. I will say, please, 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 if you are responding, put the protective gear on. This is where the problems are coming in. Again, we're seeing a lot of fentanyl. A lot of fentanyl is on the street. They just had that, it was just in California, 12 people overdosed, 1 died. 2 of the officers responding, they also had to be sent to the hospital because they were in close contact with it. So please, if you are dispensing it, make sure you are putting protective gear on. And again, here it's KUPD. That is our first responders. Again, it's Narcan. I do want to say anyone who is brought back with Narcan, they're brought to a hospital in the state. Here's the ones in Union and Ocean, and they try to connect them with a recovery specialist. I also want to say with the Narcan, they're being very specific with the canine dogs too. So for those who have the dogs who are used as scent dogs, there is specific Narcan for them, and a lot of times it's given to the canine intramuscular, and there's been canine incidents where they've been impacted. If you do dispense it, a lot of times the person is not coming up and they're like, thank you for saving my life. A lot of the times once you dispense Narcan, you're kicking that person into withdrawal. They could be agitated. What we've also seen with the canines, when they've been given it, they can be agitated. So just be careful with that. And lastly, I just want to cover new initiatives. I talked about that with the counseling center. I talked about that with health services. We do have medical amnesty. We worked really hard on this as a task force. It really follows New Jersey 911 Lifeline legislation law, which is for underage drinking. If you were to get someone help as an underage, they'd be immune from prosecution. And the Overdose Prevention Act, which follows the same thing. Medical amnesty is if a student comes back to the residence halls, I'm going to use this as an example, they're intoxicated, they come back with their roommate who's in really bad shape. They were both at the party, they have no idea what she drank, she is unresponsive, she's demonstrating signs of alcohol poisoning. If they were to call 911, dispatches to Kane Police, they stay on the phone, they don't call and hang up, which we've had, that's not medical amnesty. They stay on the phone, they communicate, they'll usually ask, do you think it's drugs, do you think it's alcohol? The police will get to the room, the student will most likely go to Nicole Rodriguez's office, she will meet with them, see what the case is, say, you know, we thank you for helping save a student. You're not going to have a judicial record, but we do want you to go get this alcohol education class. So really what it is we want students to save students' life and not feel like there's a barrier to that. So we're removing the barriers. If you see some of the high intense drinking, Penn State, they're not calling and getting help. A lot of the things is they don't want to get in trouble. So we worked really hard on that, and that's really a good effort. And we're working on smoking. We're looking to add devices to that. And lastly, I just want to put the slide up of the ATOD members. Sorry I had to rush through the end. I know everyone wants to go for lunch. Is there any questions or anything we didn't cover? Well, thank you. Oh, yeah.
I just would like to say that this was very well done and
Oh. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to say, Nicole and I really thank you in this effort. I've received a lot of Qubit things, and I know we cannot get back to faculty and staff, and I'm sure it's very frustrating. But please know, we are helping them when you submit a report, that it is not going unknown. Thank you.